Hello, this is Lisalee, and welcome back to part 2 of what your creator wants you to know. So what I did was, I basically, in order to sort of reorient us, we left off at the Mad Prophet, Curiosity, Madness, Forbidden Knowledge. I pulled Storyteller because that was like such a central part of what the creator, I guess I'm just going to keep going with that. Yeah, the title. The creator was sort of telling you about like what this experience, this particular earth journey is kind of about, this meaning making. Yeah, and the creator's like, it's really useful. And the hope in completeness and yearning. So basically we see a progression with the bottom of the deck energy, because I pulled that off, and underneath it was this one, and this was the former bottom of the deck energy. So basically the progression that we have here is that point in the self that is like oriented towards, it's kind of like the flower is you know, kind of grows towards the sun. It's like oriented towards that like spiritual quest, that seeking, like what am I? Because being here is, you know, the experience of being on this wheel until we sort of have this enlightenment is asking the question, like who am I? What made me? Over and over and over again until you get, you know, to that point where so that seeking, that question that we come into this life with, leads us to this meaning making. And, you know, so how do we access our magic though? Because basically we came to this reading like seeking the guidance and the connection to the creator. And I think that there's a utilitarian purpose to it. Like we kind of want to know how to make life better, you know, how to have more power, how to have, you know, access to, you know, meeting our emotional needs. Like, and so with the bottom of the deck underneath that being this energy, and I had to put a stone on it because it was uncomfortable for me to touch, is the overlord of the abyss, you know, pestilence, corruption, malice. But we have to go through the door of the Mad Prophet in some ways in order to regain our magic, and there's a lot behind that, and so I'm going to get to it. So I'm just going to get some cards here, because getting to our magic and being able to use it, and I'm not talking about little things, you know, I'm talking about like dominion over all that you are like imbued with the ability to like access and actually like operate through. And is it grandiose to think that we can have like remote viewing? No, it's proven. You know, is there such a thing as life after death? 150%. Like, just like we aren't really messing with these questions of like, is there more anymore? You know, like, is there life on other planets? Obviously, we're done with that question. We are, you know, there is. And so we want to come into this, you know, with what does it mean to enter the space of the Mad Prophet, is to be in that space of believing. You know, something has to contain that belief. You have to create the story that contains that belief. So if the story that you create is, I am capable of telekinesis, I mean, as an example, you know, that's like the sentence that holds the belief, and the matter comes of that, you know, in one way or another. We can call it manifestation or spells, or, you know, that's basically but to believe that the power exists first requires that you furnish a story that allows you to like have access to it. When you ask the authority a question, well, who am I to like make something up, you know? Spirit says like inspiration. If you think about inspiration as being the authority, and true inspiration is something that comes from that like purity of spirit. And we're not talking about, we're talking about a type of alchemy purity. I'll get to that in a second. But let me just look at this. Saturn. It's kind of what we're dealing with here in the way of these limitations. So the creator kind of wants me to start by saying that when we talk about this as being a journey that we're on, you know, we start with the question, with the calling, with the quest. When we make meaning of how, yeah. So spirit, yeah, I'm going to spirit. Yeah, spirit is basically saying like, listen, because creator feels funny on my tongue whenever I say that. Spirit is basically saying that like, as you make meaning about what it means to be you and what it is to be capable of whatever it is that your life is your art form. So like, as you're in that creative process, like it's going to lead you to this point of the Mad Prophet, where you have to turn around and ask yourself, like, are the beliefs that are sustaining me and anchoring me wrong or crazy? You know, is this is it really just like some fluke of nature that I'm born and that I die and it's just like this unofficial like sludge? Like, it's a funny thing because Spirit is basically showing me that like we choose what we're going to believe. And so if you have a choice between, right, Spirit is saying with the question presented, and I might vacillate between creator and spirit for some reason, because this is coming through in both, and I'm going to just follow the channel instead of trying to understand why it's doing what it's doing. So sometimes I'm going to say creator and sometimes spirit, and I don't know why that distinction is being made, but maybe we'll figure it out one day. But the creator is almost saying that when, oh, see, I just lost the channel. Doubt. It's a pain in the neck. That'll interrupt it every time. Just give me like a second to get this back. Your life is your art form. Okay, creating into the void. All right. So the void, as we know it, is presented in this way of you can call it separation, but it creates the question of like, where is the thing that I'm connected to that gave me life? And that's something that is very invested in keeping us in this like cycle of inquiry. And so it has pestilence, corruption, and malice. Like, you know, this is basically what you might call anything that has power over you to extract your time, your energy, you know, like what acts as like a god. And that can be like a president or a dictator. And like the channels in which this dictator, you know, it's a dictator, you know, so we have a dictator in place. That's basically what we're being told. And the dictator, you know, and what that dictator doesn't provide in the way of being a god is what creates the question of, well, certainly there is more to it. I know I'm capable of more caring and kindness, so certainly upper management can probably get this together, except that there's a design in place to interrupt that process. And so spiritual values, the 9th house, long range thinking or travel, what is to be shared, you know, the acceptance around, oh, we've got it. We got the channel back. So the creator is saying you have a choice. You have a question and the answer is undetermined. And you have to create meaning to contain the belief of what gets you to the answer. If you have a choice between I am a universe that is maturing and creating meaning so that I understand my purpose in the whole that is the body, that is the being of like whatever big thing we're, you know, are, you can either believe that you are capable of incredible magic, you know, the likes of which we create stories about, and you believe that you're connected to a creator in a much bigger picture, and you understand that the UFOs and the like, you know, dark matter, light matter, quantum physics, matter, you know, all of the stuff that we experience in a way of the sacred. What's the sacred? It interrupts the profane to say that's profane, this is sacred. That's how you identify it. It just makes itself known in the difference. You can believe that you are capable of infinite things, or you can believe that you're a clod of dirt that was an accident of, you know, chemistry for no reason. You absolutely have a choice about this. And so why and what would promote or lead you to like err on the side of nothingness? What would entice you to err on the side of void when you very clearly have a question that you can at least agree with the rest of the world that no one has the answer to? So why err on the side of like despair, you know? And so when we prompt ourselves to create a story that makes us more, that's not madness. It's madness to think about it the other way for so many reasons. And so when we think about, you know, what we consider the overlord or the god of our, you know, of our creative capacity, aka this monster over here, that void that is created in the way of like, it's just permitted. You know, the creator is saying, I just am permitting it right now because it's part of what is going to give you what you need. You're a universe. So are you capable of like astral travel in the daytime when you want to get from one place to another so that you don't have to like interrupt the environment with a bunch of fumes? Absolutely. You are. But that argues with matter. So does quantum physics. Like we really are in this moment where we can see what technology has gotten us in the way of working with matter. And when we switch gears and we start to sort of work with this other substance that is whatever it is that leaves the body looking like a piece of wood when it's no longer animated by it, once we begin to think about what we can create from that substance, and that's reconnecting with that perceptive community, divine feminine energy. And I say it with all of those words because it is all of those words. We have an inadequate language problem constantly. And so, you know, that's part of the tinkering here with the storytelling and the meaning. And so when we start to understand that the container of our belief is what supplies the matter, you know, and it also, it's like Spirit is saying, whenever you kind of turn to some of these grandiose statements of like, you are like a celestial being of infinite power, you are a vital organ of the Creator, why are you flinching towards I'm a piece of clay? And why isn't that the madness? So we have to question this madness, and we have to sort of walk through the uncertainty around madness to a certain degree in order to like actualize at a level that makes sense, because it's in looking at what is true and untrue, looking at what is sacred and profane. Like it's constantly gauging that like inner, in order to sort of get us further along in our magic. Our magic is what's going to create our way through the void, you know. And so let's like pull cards on how to do this, because I always get like way into the reading before like I start to get to the practical aspects of it. So, you know, Spirit is saying it's not really talking about psychosis. We're talking about like what it is to step into the archetype of the mad prophet. You first have to see more than meets the eye. And begin to see more than meets the eye. And the more that you like, it's like creating that sight. So creating that sight within yourself is allowing yourself to see the things that don't meet the eye. Like, you know, feel the presences, you know, interact with, you know, with aspects of the self that present themselves as sacred. The more that we use that muscle, the more we can use the gift that is connected to it. But we first have to make the decision to go beyond what is just seen and enter this idea of madness. It's almost like the key to our magic is to first understand that it doesn't come from this source. It doesn't come from the source that shows us who we are. It comes from the source that knows what we are. And it's that pivot of your eyes, and there's bravery in it. And it calls for you to sort of stand in the face and like look in the face of what tells you what it is and say, no, it isn't. That's hard to do. Because, you know, there's so much here. Oh my goodness, how am I gonna actually like be able to put this stuff into words? You know, part of my magic and the thing that I'm putting together, let me just get a sip of my tea. Something I want to tell you about magic. I don't think people realize this quite as much as I'm starting to come into this knowledge. It's not limited to claircognizance and clairvoyance, and the reason why you can't necessarily do a Google search and find your magic is because it's very particular to the universe that you are and what you're capable of. You know, when you think about all the different organs in the body do something different, and your magic is going to be very particular to you. And there are like archetypes in magic. There are the alchemists. And an alchemist isn't someone who can just like, you know, mess with metals. I'm talking about somebody who takes a combination of the power of the crystal, the resonance of love in the word that is spoken, plus a dash of, you know, these three elements representing these three things, you know, with the container of the ritual. Like, that's what I mean by like magic is like the alchemist takes all these little different pieces together and then it creates the outcome in matter. And so when we think about what it is to be an alchemist, it's somebody who's working with multiple different things and creating something of it. And it can even be like, you know, multiple different words, like create a story. But thinking about it much broader than just like, you know, elements, you know, that everything has a quality. And when you learn how to take the quality of each and every little thing and mush it together to make a new thing, that's an alchemist. That's a type of magic. And that's the same type of magic that makes, you know, creates technology. You know, it's just like taking all the little pieces, putting them together, and now it's a machine that does something. That's an alchemist who does that. But there's much more to that magic than just making a car. You know, that's just one little tiny sliver of what we're capable of. You know, Spirit is saying, like, this energy, you know, this dark overlord, this void, the abyss, understands that there's no stopping us from using magic, but to create limits on what that magic is capable of doing, at least contains it so that we don't have self-actualization. So if the limits on our magic is, well, you can create a car, but you can't, you know, create, you know, transfiguration. This is where, you know, we have to become the mad prophet. And so, you know, the question of like, well, what about spiritual psychosis? I'll get an answer for that right now, because I want to know. Because it is hard to become the mad prophet, but there's almost this thing that says, well, but this is, you're asking the question. You know, you're wanting to enter the mystery schools. There's something to this. Angel of New Life. So we've got submission, connection, and empathy. I'm just going to move that over. Saturn, you can go over here. All right. Yeah, like I'm hearing, like, is there one true God? Like, I don't spoken, I don't, you know, maybe it's somebody's question, and yeah, but I think it's a different experience for everyone. It's hard. I'm actually being shown something that I can't. Oh, like there's that question that came in, and then what I'm shown I actually don't have adequate language for. Again, this might happen a lot with this reading because the energy that I'm working with is only partially comprehensible for me, like to understand. I think I'm going to take some tarot cards in order to get closer to what I'm being shown. It's dizzying. It's making me dizzy, actually. Creator. The Wheel of Fortune here. All right. So, okay. I'm just going to try my hardest. I really am. Yeah, Angel of Rain. Come on, help me with this. So when we think about what it is to, like, the magic of bringing life into the world is pretty substantial. We're very capable of this. We've been endowed with this ability by that which created us. So, you know, to make matter out of nothing is something that we already know that we can do. And so Spirit is basically saying, you know, when you create this container and when you enter this sort of like place of the mad prophet, you're first looking at the structure that exists and saying, like, you know, I can do better than this. You're looking at the horse and the buggy and you're like, I can improve on this system. I've got the creative capacity to do that. And instead of turning towards matter to make more matter, you're going to turn towards like this creative substance to make more matter, or to work with in terms of, and that's energy, like beginning to work with energy in a way that refines its capabilities in terms of how it relates to matter. We already know that energy meets matter and makes what? A baby. We already do this something from nothing naturally. And so the fact that we're able to do this on smaller scales, and that we're meant to be able to do this on smaller scales, is to first believe that we can, but to also understand that, like, the same way that each organ in the body works to move the body along. And now my ear is ringing so loud I can barely like hear the channel coming through. Look at this interference, man. Absolutely unacceptable. I'm not gonna, yeah, this is like, wow. Sometimes I will be delivering a message and the interference will be kind of substantial. And right now it's in the form of like, I'm just gonna get a hold of this. Just give me 1 second. Knowing what we're capable of, seeing what we're capable of. Understanding that as far as energy is concerned, and as far as dark matter is concerned, we live in co-creation with it all the time. And so the ecosystem of the unseen is as rich as the ecosystem of the seen. And when we start to work with it, when we come into a cooperative space within it, then we start to see, you know, the power kind of click into place. You know, and there's two aspects to this. One aspect is every organ in the body has to work together in order to move the body forward. And so there does need to be some level of consensus, and gods get their power from consensus. So what we create in the way of containers for our belief by consensus become very, very powerful. Right now we believe by consensus competition instead of believing by consensus cooperation. You can see how we create the power of these gods to overlord our lives. And so, you know, when we think about our creative capacity as being the source of our magic, and we understand what that can bring in the way of catharsis, what that can bring in the way of healing and transformation, you know, that it can interact with matter, is just a leap, like one little leap in the belief, you know, to knowing that. And so, you know, when we submit to what meets the eye is not what I'm stuck with, and what meets the eye and what is understood, you know, as a consensus belief is not the God that I serve, then it's very easy for you to say, well, that's just not the God that I serve, instead of, I'm crazy because I don't believe like you believe. And to just understand that what the container that you're placing your belief in is a container that says, I am capable of these things, and here's all the reasons why I believe that, and it's contained in the story that I tell about myself. It's like kind of like an easy formula, in a way that is just like, it really challenges you to you know, have that Jesus moment, and you know, and most of us don't get there, because it's really, really hard to do that kind of spiritual parkour, but we are all capable of it. And so like this submission to connection, it's not that you have to say, oh, well, I believe that I can turn water into wine, and so tomorrow, like, alakazam, zippity boop, and there it is. Like, you know, you probably will get a little of the ways there every single time you apply yourself. And, you know, you may create things that are incredibly powerful one day, and the next day create something that kind of flops. But the point is, you know, the more you submit to this connection with that knowing that the creator, that the source of your life wants you to come into the fullness of your power, and the more that you open your mind to that sight and that hearing that isn't what you are being prescribed, you know, as your limits. The question of spiritual psychosis, you know, is in relationship to it creates a kind of a fear. And there is this ecosystem that we're always negotiating with, because we live and this is where the consensus is like a pain in the neck for me anyway, when I look at this big picture stuff that's coming through. Yes, you can access your magic on your own, and as you do, it moves us towards this tipping point, you know, like everybody gets an iPhone at a certain point. But in the beginning, it's really hard to do, and it's kind of dicey, because when we think about this overlord of the abyss, you know, dark matter, the unseen, seems to have to, in some way, cohere to its influence, like in the same way that we have to by going to work every day, because if we don't, like, the rent doesn't get paid. Like there's something to that coherence that, like, this is where we have to be radical, and this is where we have to sort of bring a spiritual rebellion to an extent. And it's not so much about duality, because again, like, both elements agitate the change and the growth. But when it comes to taking dominion over, you know, who we are and what we're going to be as a humanity, you know, that's where we have to look at what's not working, and the God that we do serve that is tyrannical and does leave people to die hungry, and say, no, thank you. I'm going to invest my belief into a different container. That one does not hold me, and it doesn't hold my brothers, and it doesn't hold my sisters, and it doesn't hold my others. You know, it's like, it's really important for us to sort of like understand that there is an arc, you know, that we're all part of moving the dial forward. And so, you know, that mad prophet, you know, it's sort of like, you know, you can think about everyone who believes anything. Anyone who believes any belief that has something to do with what is not seen, you know, even a belief in currency, you know, the power of currency. I don't know, that came through, and I'm not really even sure, because I saw it and then it flew away. But the bottom line is, like, you know, that I'm saying a lot of words to kind of convince you that you're capable of participating in this move towards a new life where everyone is provided for by the magic that you naturally endow. that like life force stuff that's going on. And you might not see it in this lifetime, but you can begin influencing that tipping point right now. And you can get a hell of a ways far, like, you know, into like the benefits of what it means to use your magic before we're fully actualized in our abilities, you know, as beings, as souls. And so, you know, you're just kind of being called into this co-creation, and it's almost like your creator saying, you know, I am as far away from you as the beating heart is far away from you. So I'm not far away at all, you know, and I am an intelligent substance that created you very intentionally, but I am a creator that again, you part of your like finding this way towards this power and being able to use it is first having the submission to this connection with the divine, with your creator, which is the same as stepping into that mad prophet. It requires faith in the craziness and the unknown, faith in something that isn't proven. It requires that. Submission to connection requires faith in something that you can't see, which is exactly the mad prophet. And so, you know, this empathy card, you know, speaks of, it's something we feel our way into. And it's really important that we know that, like, part of what it means to search for God is to see it in others. And everyone's magic is really unique. And so, you know, I am a seer and I am an interpreter. Those are two aspects of my magic. And that means that I see the magic in others. And it also means that I can interpret, you know, the different, you know, I have kind of like it's hard to explain how I do it, but that's me learning how to use my magic means that I'm able to see your magic and help you interpret some of what comes through. So there's this way in which you have something just as valuable and somebody else has something just as valuable. And when we step out of competition and we realize that we're all holding a piece of magic, you know, we're all an organ, you know, that is required in order to move this body forward, but that the magic of the heart and its beating ability is profound, and the magic of the liver and its filtration ability is profound, and the magic of the digestive system and its transmutation ability is profound, and the magic of the mind and its, you know, meaning making is profound. And so, like, you need to know that as part of the body of this larger cosmos, your magic is it's not only important for you to find it, it's required. And so this quest on spirituality, you first have to believe the impossible. That's how this new life is created, and start working with the alchemy of like what you're capable of, that creating that container for your belief is. And so now let's ask about the exploration process, because it starts with exploration. The confronting of the overlord of the abyss is saying, I don't care about your abyss. I'm just going to magic my way through it. You know, you do kind of have to do the whole, you know, Mordor, deal with some orcs. That's these fears. Think about the orcs as the fears that pop up. Somebody's going to think I'm crazy. Fear that pops up. You know, what if I, you know, just get overtaken by darkness? You know, there's all kinds of orcs that come along, and you have to confront all of them sometimes in order to kind of feel your power back to that, like seeing the boxing, you know, training. You know, this is this thing. But you're invited into this process, like very profoundly invited into this process. To just start experimenting with it. Like, do you have to, you know, I'm looking at the, we've got the Four of Wands, the Seven of Swords, and the Ace of Swords, you know, so this discernment in terms of what's true and what's false. You think of that like the training grounds. It's not like you have to figure out what's true and false and then you make your move, you know, because the part of the training is like making your move and where you find yourself. Is this place true to my purpose, or is it untrue? You know, and how do you know? Peace or agitation. You know, the truth is peaceful, lies agitate. And this is like that inner compass. This is discernment, and this will never steer you wrong. Agitated or peace. Where does the anxiety come? And that's actually kind of a distinctly different feeling. Peace, like, again, I always say it's like the stone that like hits the lake and falls slowly and heavy, like right to the bottom, very smooth. And like the lie is the drone that hits the top of the lake and like, you know, agitates and sort of like, you know, sputters out, and then it causes a rupture in the harmony. So that's part of your learning process, because for you to have this much power means that you have to do some sifting. You know, and that sifting work is like, I'm going to enter the land of the mad prophet. I don't care what people think of me. I'm going to start looking at those unseen little blips and paying attention to them. And I'm going to see where that leads me. You know, I'm going to know that this is not the whole and the complete and the everything of who I am. This experience of I get up in the morning, I go to work, I age, I go to sleep. That is not the totality of what you are. So you just like reject that outright. And then you begin the search for this truth. And the search for this truth isn't about like, I'm going to decide what the truth is and then I have it. No, the search for this truth is this constant discernment as you test your magic against different things in order to refine it, find it, work with it. What sinks like a stone and causes peace? What agitates? Where does the agitation lead in the way of a divine detour? You know, this is an ongoing process, accepting that you're going to go down roads that are the wrong road for the purpose of like finding some aspect of your magic that goes with some other aspect of your magic that ultimately leads to the creation of like you. Again, you got to start with this belief. You know, this is a component of, I hate to say it, but it's like, yeah, faith is such a component of the alchemy that creates from no matter to matter. You know, it's really interesting. You know, you have an ability that can affect matter, you know, even if that isn't, you know, creating a stone out of nothing. You know, it's creating a living, you know, out of the ability to see someplace else with your, like, I'm thinking of remote viewing in the stock market, which again, I don't like capitalism. I'm personally like, what is it to take down the overlord of the abyss and build into the abyss? It's changing from competition to community. But basically I'm saying you can use your magic for you, you know, and so every little step of the way that you are experimenting with this, it's not, I have to find the one true God and then I can have access to it. That's the lie. You're never going to get there that way. It's, I'm going to feel my way forward in the dark until I hit a doorknob, and then I'm going to crank it and it's going to open a crack and I'm going to get into another room and I'm going to see a whole new view. And that doing that over and over and over and over again, and having a different relationship to the process of spirituality and magic is not an end point game like Christianity presented. We got to do a lot of unlearning. Even those of us that didn't grow up with that infrastructure of belief, it's just filtered into society in such a gross way that we're constantly having to confront the reality that makes us small clay, you know, go to work, get older, you know, and go to like that whole cycle of exploiting your labor and your magic, to step into that mad prophet and begin experimenting with the idea that you can magic your way in this direction, magic your way in that direction. Are you gonna like hit some, you know, dark patches and some, you know, scary stuff? Yep, you are. Are you gonna need other witches and other practitioners to help you, you know, with their magic is going to guide you in certain ways. Your magic is going to guide them in certain ways. This is why we need each other in community, and we create that by knowing that like your magic is just as important as mine and we're not in competition. And I really want to get you, you know, fully connected with your magic because I need that. I need that from you, you know, in the same way that, so we just kind of do this together. And we also know that no one's magic is the same. Just like creating art. There's no way that you can try to create, you know, a copy of somebody else's art. But ultimately, yeah, I'm almost, I'm really seeing this thing. Gosh, all of these want to just be out. We're just going to do that. What do we got on the bottom of the deck? Third eye chakra. So, you know, surrender to connection. It does not mean like, you know, double blind experiments. It can be, I guess, but, you know, ultimately what we're seeing here in the way of this, you know, finding truth and sharpening your discernment, you're going to get use of your magic, you know, the better you are with your discernment, because what you're not going to get is a pile of like really powerful magic that you're going to give away because you know, fell in love with the wrong person and then they have that control, you know, like that's, you know, what's coming here through here in terms of, this is interesting. Wait, what are these other cards? Discernment, allowance, emergence, tantric journey. See, I could do this all day long. It's just like so fascinating. gosh, this is exactly what we're talking about, isn't it? The creator is saying, look to creation. Look to creation for this map. I almost like don't want to say anything. You know, I'm so in awe of what's coming through, just like in these cards right now, in the way of where I'm in awe. I'm actually in awe at the moment. We've got Angel of New Life, Conception, and Discernment. So how do you come into union with your creator? And let's think of this romantic love as a romance with your creator, which is because we're talking about your magic, right? So first we have to conceive of the notion that we are way more than we think we are, and that we have to build a container for that belief system in order to access the power and actually have the discernment to find that, to create that relationship. Having the discernment to create that relationship means testing different things out. You know, that's why I encourage like spiritual exploration in every single way. Like I think we should be exploring like crazy. Not, you know, and it's I'm gonna have a sip of tea. Just give me 1 second. My throat gets kind of dry. With the third eye chakra, it's like we have the tool to make this connection, and we just have to start using that muscle. Because as we invest emotionally, and we invest our attention, is basically when we invest, we believe that this creator exists for us to connect to. We invest our attention on creating that relationship. That means creating a relationship with the unseen, and that's a whole fan of different things. And so, and that's a testing ground. You know, this imaginary, it's not an imaginary friend, you know, I'm just like, you know, I'm trying to help you understand this, like the journey of the mad prophet. So like this relationship with the unseen, that is a very real relationship, that I can feel it. It's like tangibly there. And like, I know, is it good for me? Is it bad for me? If it's bad for me, what is it doing for me? You know, if it's bad for me and I seem to be stuck with it, like what is the purpose of it? Like, am I, and just always orienting your journey towards connecting with that spiritual like a barometer within that says peace, agitation, because it's more a relationship with a feeling than it is a relationship with a thinking determined, which is why you don't like find the truth and then move. You search and the truth finds you. And that's this receptive magic as opposed to like this directive magic. And we've been doing directive magic for a really long time, technology, but this is different. And this is sort of like, this is what we're unearthing with the question. And so, you know, you're feeling your way forward, and that's where this allowance comes in. Allowing for experimentation, allowing yourself to go down bad like roads that aren't like the truth. You know what I mean? To just go down, you know, on following your curiosity like a puppy that picks up a scent, and you know, it might lead you to a bear, but then you're going to like discover your power of bear blocking, and there's a whole reason for that journey. And so there's just really a lot of trust in it, and a lot of belief in the value of encountering this magic and working with this magic, and knowing that it's like that, it's the substance, the magic, that's your creator, you know. And that's like, when we say it's an intelligent substance, like that's really complicated. But that's where the Tantric Journey comes in. And I'm going to read this Tantric Journey card. The frequency of Tantric Journey helps us to unlock the hidden knowledge and wisdom that we intrinsically hold about how to reach a state of wholeness and completion through our sensual experiences with ourselves and with another. Your body is the sensual experiences. The other is your creator and your witness, like that which imbues life, you know? So it is this relationship between the body and the soul, you know, to a certain extent. And the soul knows what it is. It knows the galaxies it's connected to. It knows what its sustenance is. The body is the sensual experience. And so we do have to make some kind of like peace with this relationship between what is matter, touch, you know, and what is unseen. But we're the fusion of the two. And as the fusion of the two, we're supposed to make the magic that does the fusion of the two and does things with it. And so, you know, this relationship with our creator is a relationship with ourselves to a certain degree. And that's not unsatisfying. It's been billed as a crappy unsatisfying thing because it's been cheapened. You know, it's and we feel this tremendous need, but like passion, this is your creativity and inspiration. When we talk about, well, what's the substance of the creator, and is it formless? Because I needed to have a form, I needed to have a body. I get that, and I feel that with you 100%. Create that body. How do you create that body? You need to know that your inspiration is divine. And if you put the faith behind my inspiration is divine, then you're going to see God, because it'll be shown to you. But first you have to be willing to be the mad prophet. And that means braving this idea of being perceived as insane or feeling yourself as insane, and braving the fact that sometimes your nose is going to lead you down roads where you see a bear. But then knowing that what you learn about your magic as a result of that encounter is the whole point. And so you can't really, God isn't fixed. It's not a fixed position. And so your creator wants you to know that the creator saying, I will inspire you with visions to see me. I want to be in relationship with you. You have to turn your attention towards me. And that's what this allowance is. And you have to experiment with what comes through without judging it and interrogating it and wrong and righting it, because this tantric journey is about knowing that you're in relationship with your purpose. And this all emerges from participation. And so, where we really are with this message in terms of like what your creator wants you to know, you participate. And I'm just like looking at this. I'm going to get some more cards because we have a little bit of time to, when you think about romantic love, Spirit wants you to know that romance is really an important part. It's a very powerful alchemy. In fact, it's been used to poison, like there's good magic and there's bad magic. And so it has been used in an element of binding magic that has us in the bind that we find ourselves today. It's a very strong thing. But romance, oh man, how the hell am I going to explain this? This is so important. Let me just like sit here for a second and just see like what I can get in the way of like coherence, because what I'm being shown about romance and alchemy, romanticizing, when we think about rituals and we think about spiritual technology, the church is a really good example. Like everything about the church is a certain kind of spiritual technology, even though it's rotten and it produces a lot of really nasty, magic. And I hope I'm not offending anyone, but but basically what I'm saying is that as it stands, it's corrupted, so it has a corrupted file. But when we romanticize our life, when we say, I am this vital part of the divine, and I'm the vital part of the divine that creates meaning and consciousness and informs the whole, then you look at your life and you look around at your life and you're like, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to make meaning? Like, how am I going to infuse this with romance? And so it's like the romance with this tantric journey, and oh gosh, so hard to explain. I feel like it's like maybe impossible. Let me try. Let me just get some cards so that I can try. Because it's sort of like this magic of romanticizing your life, putting rituals within your life to create this connection with the divine, with whom you fall in love with this attention and this devotion. Like there's this whole thing, and the inspiration that comes through for you and what emerges of that union. That's what we're talking about by walking on water. It's really complicated though. Let's see if I can get it a little bit easier than that. Calling things into being, merging with essences. Like, there's so much here about what you can do with everything that is around you at any given moment in order to create you are creating your way through that void to the access to your powers, and that's tough because it means starting without them. Libra, healer within, universal healing, and inner vision. And Aries, we're just taking some breaths. This is where we take action. So, it's this combination of, oh, these are some cool elements. My goodness. Oh, it's like you're participating with the healing of the world by doing this work. And there's nothing about it that is a waste of time. Participating you know, this, God, how do I get this right? I feel like this entire reading is me asking that question, and as I look up at the clock, it's, you know, 4444. We're surrounded by our guides, and so I'm going to take this moment to acknowledge that I'm surrounded by my guides, and my guides are saying, okay, let's leave it here and go to a third part, because I think everyone needs a break. I do, and so whoever's taking notes, we're going to leave it at, first, you know, we build into the void to access our power when it comes to our magic, and that this is something that we do for ourselves, and that the bigger picture is that we do it for humanity. And so when it comes to taking specific action, we're gonna come back to this next reading on taking specific, like where our creator gives us some information on some specific action to be taken. Yeah, let's take a break. I'll be back.